It's an honor to be here, Alan. Thank you for having me.
I've had such an amazing time digging into your resources. And for everybody watching, you need to check out his website, all of his resources. The links are going to be provided in the description. And I want to ask you eventually in this interview about the top 3 or 4 UFO videos that you think are the most legitimate. But first, I want to talk to you about the news of the day. I want to talk to you about the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office from the Pentagon, who's done an investigation into themselves. And they have determined that we don't have extraterrestrial technology or reverse engineered it. What are your thoughts on the news? Maybe explain kind of the report that's come out and what your thoughts are.
This is the typical old school thinking, if you want to even use that term. I'm being polite. It's the old school paradigm: deny, obfuscate, twist the truth, lie, look right at the camera and say, we don't have anything. Meanwhile, the Pentagon released this several years ago after David Fravor came out in 2017. You remember, all these guys are military. Fravor, Luis Elizondo, Chris Mellon, Nick Pope, right. They're all military. So they're part and parcel. David Grush, the whistleblower. They know what's going on. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But the other side is pushing back. Nothing to see here. It's just a weather balloon. We all know that. And, General Ramey says that the excitement, drum roll please, is not justified. There it goes. Thank you, wow. General. That's 1947. That's Roswell. That set the precedent, the tone of the whole UFO phenomenon. Look, UFOs are real, burgeoning, and not going away. I mean, there's no doubt about this. And to have, this general guy over the weekend come out and tell us that absolutely no evidence. I mean, it's just, the guy's just lying through his teeth. Now, and I say that with all due respect because he might not be lying. In other words, everything is so compartmentalized, that's all he knows. That's all he's allowed to see. So he's really not lying, and I repent of saying that. He's telling the truth as he knows it. Wow. But then that discounts Commander David Fravor with the tic-tac shape object. I mean, the thing is sitting there like this, and all of a sudden, fling, it's gone. And I saw the same thing when I was 12 years old. I saw it wasn't a tic-tac. It was a dull silver disc.
Really?
Yeah. 12 years old at Boy Scout camp. Dull silver disc sitting up about just like this. And we're down here, and the lead boy goes, wow, what's that? The other two behind him go, wow, what is that? And I go, where? And they go, there. I look up, it's a classic silver disc. Before I can say anything, Alan, we looked at it for maybe 15 to 20 seconds. It goes like this, just like that gun. I mean, in a blink of an eye, like a bullet out of a gun, just like David Fravor says, Commander David Fravor. So things are compartmentalized. All the truth is always compartmentalized. And that's why when a witness goes up on the stand, they can say, well, I have no knowledge of that. And it's true that they don't, because everything is so tightly controlled. The information is presidents can't even get into Area 51 for crying out loud. So, I mean, what's really going on here? And what's alarming is, back in the 90s, people got cancer. They got sick. David Flynn, 49 years old, not buying the brain tumor deal at all, and were they taken out? I don't know, possibly. I'm not saying they were, but I'm not saying, I cannot confirm or deny that report because I can't. I can't. And we're at a window of time that is absolutely unprecedented. And the fact that David Grush, who is a whistleblower, can stand before Congress, once again, he's telling the truth as he knows it. And he's saying that whistleblowers have come up, he's a whistleblower, people have come up to him, and they, without a doubt, we have a retrieval team that is used for crashed UFOs. And then Nancy Mace goes, well, were there bodies recovered from these crashes? And he goes, yes, biologics were recovered.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Non-human biologics. My phone doesn't ring. Nobody gives a flip. It's just, it's unbelievable. Pastors aren't talking about it in their church for the most part. And it's like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I mean, this is it. This is the coming great deception, and we're on the doorstep of it. So it's It's the old school. The old school did this. The old school, well, this is the truth. First of all, this is a replica of the paper. RAF captures flying saucer. That's the truth all day long. And there are other reporting stories in this which verify the headline. This is not a weather balloon, because Dan Wilmot and his wife see this thing come, always good to have props, streaking across the sky like this. Weather balloons don't streak. They don't do that. They float very nicely and gently. This thing comes streaking across the sky. Now, are they lying? Are all the witnesses lying? Are the people that we've interviewed in our films, Roswell, Exoneration, and In the Debris Field, are they all lying? Of course they're not. But the old school said, well, we got to put the kibosh on this. And this paper here is July 8th. This is July 9th.
Wow.
Jumbo Ramey empty saucer and says the excitement is not justified. Dun, dun, dun. And that begins 77 years of UFO cover-up. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And in the 90s, they actually had professional debunkers like Philip Klass. I'll never forget, on the anniversary of the Phoenix Lights, they had the whole panel was there, including Governor Fife Symington, who was the governor at the time. He was no longer governor. But at the time, Fife Symington was the governor. And, Philip Klass, the professional debunker, was there. They have two women who were talking about, well, I looked up and this thing was a mile wide. It blotted out all the skies. It made no noise. And then it shot away. And Fife Symington says, I saw this thing too. It was not from this world. And Philip Klass immediately jumps on them. Are you a trained witness? And the women just look at him and go, no, but I know what I saw.
Yeah.
I don't need to be a trained witness to tell you whether it's a horse or a car. I mean, I know what I saw. Quit trying to twist my words and trip me up. So that was, on the anniversary of the Phoenix Light. And Fife Symington apologized to his constituents because what he did is he dressed the guy up as an alien and marched him out for the press conference.
I remember that.
That was a construct. I guarantee he was told to do that. I guarantee it. So he insults everybody because everybody saw this thing. They were not flares. We've already debunked that. They were not flares. This was a very large craft. I've interviewed people who were there and saw it. This is, what we do in our films is real investigative journalism.
Yeah, you're not an armchair commentator. You're actually on the ground. I'm going to put a link for your latest project as well in the description of this video. Tell us about this, because one of the things you talk about is how Roswell was deliberate. And maybe talk to us about this latest project that you're doing, and then explain, what do you mean by that?
This is somewhat conjecture. All right. It's in some ways, because, when was the last time you sat down with Beelzebub and had a conversation? I'm here with Beelzebub. Thank you for coming on the record, sir. It's really not a pleasure to meet you, but it's very interesting. I was wondering about the 1947 Roswell craft. Beelzebub, do you have any comment? I mean,
you couldn't believe it anyway, what he said.
But you get my point. I mean, you get my point. We don't know, which is why we keep pushing and probing and looking and searching, and we go to the debris field. We were in the debris field. We got into Hangar 84. We interviewed Jesse Marcel Jr.'s, widow. We interviewed his best friend, an anesthesiologist. We interviewed his daughter. It's all in the film. I mean, it's really investigative journalism, getting their side of the story. And then there's other witnesses that we bring in to corroborate the story. The 509th Bombing Group is the only bombing group on the planet with nuclear capability in 1947. The 509th dropped the atom bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This is conjecture. I'll say it again. This is conjecture, but it's based on decades of research. So when Jesus casts out the demons from the man of the tombs, they go, what have you to do with us, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Have you come to torment us before the time? What
How
time?
do they know when the time is, right?
But they know this is not it. They know that this isn't what it looks like when we get, put in the Huskow. They know that this isn't 2,000 years ago. It doesn't look like this. It looks like where we are now, in my opinion. They can travel through time, I think, conjecture. They can see further than we can see. I wrote about this in a cosmic chess match. We're in a cornfield. We're stuck in a space-time continuum. In front of us is the corn. That's what we see. Satan pulls up in a big red fire truck with a hook and ladder, raises that ladder, climbs up to the top. Guess what? He can see the cornfield and the other cornfield all around him. He's got a whole different view than what we do. The Most High God's in a space shuttle. He's going, dun, 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 no problem here. You know, I can see the dime that LA just dropped out of his pocket in the cornfield. In fact, I can see 3 states over. So I'm all knowing, the enemy isn't. It's a rough analogy, but I call it the cornfield analogy. So the 509th is the only bombing group on the planet that has nuclear capability. They are stationed in Roswell, New Mexico. This is why I think it's deliberate. The bodies that are retrieved are avatars. There's no reproduction no reproduction organs. I think, anyway, a slit for a mouth, no digestive system. So they're avatars. UFO contactees report seeing the grays stacked up like cordwood, like chairs. That's how they report them. And I've got 3 sources that'll do that. Whitley Strieber, Dolly, and Karen Wilkinson. So I'm not making this up. All 3 have been aboard the ships. 2, the women, Karen and Dolly, learned to fly the ship.
So when you say these are avatars, is this like a ghost in the machine situation where
they are
evil entities?
They are biological constructs where the demons can enter in to the gray and appear in our dimension. Remember, when Jesus cast out the demons, they're in the guy. Then they go to the pigs, and who knows what happens to them. Mm-hmm. A demon is the product was at one time a Nephilim, in flesh and blood walking around on the planet. Demons are the disembodied spirits of a Nephilim who were destroyed in the flood. The Nephilim are the progeny of fallen angels and the women of earth. Fallen angels, Genesis 3:15, when Jesus says to Satan in the garden, your seed will be at enmity at war. Your seed, your offspring, will be at enmity at war with the seed, the offspring of the woman. The proto-evangelium, Jesus, in the future, the Messiah, will crush your head, you'll bruise his heel. That, Alan, is the entire gateway to the rest of the biblical narrative. If we don't get the exegesis right for Genesis 3:15, when we get to Genesis 6, the Tower of Babel, Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham and the kings, the genocide which happens in Canaan, it's not genocide. They are the Nephilim tribes, and the seed war is fully manifested when the conquest of Canaan happens, full blown. The field is rife with the Nephilim tribes and then the 12 tribes of Israel. We still don't know who Messiah is going to come from. We don't know it's Judah. We don't know that yet. But they're there. The 12 tribes are there. This is the full blown seed war, right? And unless you know Genesis 3:15, it's genocide. Why would God do this? And that's what Richard Dawkins uses to, cut the Christians off at the knees, but he doesn't know anything about the Nephilim. I'd love to sit down and school him, take him to school. Richard, the only reason why you're saying that is because you don't understand Genesis 3:15. You don't understand that there's a seed war. So the demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Nephilim are the progeny of fallen angels, earthly human women, creating a hybrid known as the Nephilim. This is why the flood of Noah. This is why only 8 people were saved, because everybody else on some level is genetically impure.
And what's really important for those of you watching, regardless of your position on the origin of demons, you need to know you have authority over them, number one. And number two, the layers. This is some of the research that I did for my book of Nephilim throughout Scripture. And giants is beyond what the average Sunday school lesson will teach you. And one of the interesting things that I've heard you talk about is that there are different kinds of Nephilim. They're not all giants.
No.
When you look at them throughout the Old Testament, what are some of the key words and phrases that let us know this is something different? And if they're not giants, what are they?
The Anakim means long necks. The Zamzumim means buzzing ones. What's that? What I think is going on, conjecture, is that Satan is trying to create a hybrid being in his own image, but he can't do it, which is why he keep getting different genetic characteristics. Our DNA result in Paracas, Peru, I mean, there it is. This is not human in our opinion. The DNA proved that these guys came from the Middle East. They came from the Middle East, Alan. That rewrites history. Everything's wrong. I mean, our film on the DNA, we've got surgeons and medical doctors and professionals, archaeologists, anthropologists, optometrists. I mean, you know, people go, you know, they call it one critic, the guy is so full of himself, you know, ignorance and arrogance is a deadly combination. You know, he said something really insulting. L.A. MARZULLI and his team of loons. So let me get this straight. Two archaeologists, an anthropologist, a historian. I mean, we've got this team of people, 3 different DNA labs, and we're the, you know, you sir are the fool because you won't even look at the evidence. The evidence is there, it's not contaminated. The DNA, the mitochondrial DNA for these guys showed that there's a Middle Eastern connection. Look at the orbits. The orbits are 25 to 30% larger than a human being right there. Mm-hmm. They're also closer, much closer together. So the pupils are closer together. So that means that this thing, according to our optometrist, could more than likely see in the dark. Guess what? When last time I was in Paracas, Peru in 2019, I was with a Peruvian archaeologist. He didn't even know he's looking at. There was a chimney, stone chimney, which went down into the ground. A couple of stories. There was a rooms down there. These entities in Paracas, some of them lived underground. They lived underground. I asked the archaeologist, how did they see? We don't know. I'll tell you how they saw. Did you take one of the skulls to an optometrist? Of course not, because that's the way things are done. There's no multidiscipline, you know, different people coming together like what we did. That's why there's medical doctors and surgeons and, you know, chiropractors, archaeologists, anthropologists. The kicker was this. This is the work of Rick Woodward. This is, I'm trying to get the camera there.
That's what I was going to ask about. How do you know it's not formed? The skull wasn't, you know, how certain cultures formed the skull to make it look different.
I get that. This is the smoking gun.
Yep.
This is the foramen magnum. The whole is created by Joe Taylor, who modeled the original skull. So this is to put a dowel in. So if you were going to, without Joe, this white stuff in the hole wouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. This is where the spinal column attaches to the skull. That should be here.
Oh, wow.
It should be right here. Right here. It's not. It's pushed all the way to the occipital plate. If it's any further back, it's outside the skull. You cannot manipulate the foramen magnum. It's set in utero. So this has nothing to do with cranial deformation. And you can't push the rear of the skull back. You'll kill the kid. You'll kill whoever you're doing it. You can't do that. It's set. It should be here. See my pen? It should be right there. It's not. It's right here. It's all the way in the rear.
Those were found in Peru.
This is the Paracas skulls.
Now, I got to ask you, my daughter, who's 14, wanted me to ask you, since you brought up Peru, she wanted me to ask you about the Peruvian miners with jetpacks. The government apparently explained that that's all we're seeing here, miners with jetpacks.
Well, yeah, so we just traveled into the middle of nowhere and with our jetpacks so we could freak everybody out. I mean, the people really think that we're stupid. Tim Alberino went down there and filmed there. I have not seen his work, but I think they had a visitation. That's what I think. The veil is thinning. It's the time of the end, in my opinion. The enemy grows bold. He's doing stuff that we never thought we would see, but we're seeing it. We're seeing it now. It's manifesting all around us.
Apart from the veil thinning, and I believe we are in the last days, the last of the last days, why are all the whistleblowers coming out now? I get that question all the time. Why all of a sudden are we seeing congressional testimony, the DOD, Pentagon talking about these things?
Because the old guard is dead. Roswell was in 47. The old guard that was there and present, they're all dead. So they passed their stuff down. But the new guard is going, no, we got to let this out. That's why Commander David Fravor, who calls up Tucker Carlson and says, yeah, we'd like to have this guy, his name is Commander David Fravor. We'd like to have him on the show. How does that work? You tell me, how does that work? The guy doesn't have a book, doesn't have a DVD. He's an unknown. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but no one knows who he is. Now he's a household name. Then followed by Luis Elizondo, then Christopher Mellon. These are all the rungs on the ladder of disclosure, and up and up and up we go. The last rung was Anna Paulina Luna, just a couple of weeks ago, stating in Congress that, it's not extraterrestrial. If we listen carefully to what David Grush is telling us, they're interdimensional. It's my wheelhouse. Yeah. You would think, and I know that they know who I am. I know that. No one's contacted me, and they probably never will. because this is really woo-woo. But right now we have 8 films on UFOs, Alan.
Yes.
And number 9 and 10 will be released probably in the end of April. They're basically finished. We just got to, we don't want to release them on the heels of Roswell. We're the only Christian ministry that will have 10 films. Right now there's 8. You can go to our streaming site and, for a price of a cup of coffee, download them and educate yourself. I mean, it's real investigative journalism. And we're not banging people over the head with the Bible. Everything is from a Christian perspective.
Yes.
Make no doubt about it. But we're not like quoting scripture every 5 seconds and, acting like a Southern preacher. Not that Southern preachers are bad, but you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. And going back to the Roswell videos that you have there, you actually found some evidence there when you went to, not the crash site, you talk about how it was a skip site, I think is the phraseology that you talk to us about what you discovered.
Well, it's a skip site. We actually show this in the film. The craft comes down like this, it hits and bounces. And then the second time when it hits, it just explodes. Shards go all over the place. So we think it came down, it hit, it left this debris in debris field number 1, but then it traveled and finally came to a rest. That's where the saucer was, the craft was, and the bodies were recovered from the second site. There's a fence around that. You can't get in there. There's a fence around it. But the first site, we had total access to it. It's in the middle of nowhere. Alan, when I say it's the middle of nowhere, it's an hour driving on a 4-lane highway north of Roswell. Then you make a left turn. Now you're on a 2-lane country road in the middle of nowhere. It's pretty much cattle range stuff. Maybe a couple of houses, mostly ranches. Then after about 35 to 40 minutes, you make another left-hand turn. Now you're on a cattle road. It's gravel, it's maintained, free-range cattle all around. Free-range cattle, no fences, don't fence me in. And you're on that for about 30, 35 minutes. You make a left turn. There's a cattle gate. You open up the cattle gate, and now you're 4-wheeling, another 20 minutes. And then you arrive at the debris field. If you don't know where it is, you'll miss it.
So you take metal detectors there, and what did you uncover?
Frank Hibbler was the one that took the metal detectors, and this is what we uncovered. There you go.
Oh, you can see a picture of it, yeah.
Yeah, that's the real deal.
And you had that analyzed. What did you discover?
Well, first of all, it was buried 6 to 8 inches below the ground. So in our film, we show that skip of the craft, and then it hits and it explodes. So the metal comes out like a bullet out of a gun, and it buries itself into the ground. This is why we didn't get it all. Alan, they didn't get it all.
Wow.
And the metal is folded in on itself. We found 2 pieces. Chuck Zukowski took one. Frank Hibbler took another. Both of these guys had them tested. It's in the film. It's an aluminum 7000 series, but it's not an exact match. And the aluminum 7000 series, drum roll please, wasn't invented till 1953. Roswell was in 47. So unless these guys have a time machine, and they don't, what's that doing in a debris field? And see, the thing is, I've got really good friends. Well, that's pretty far out of LA. And there's that cognitive dissonance, and they always hang back. They will never cross the line and realize that this is the coming great deception, because that's what it is. This is it. When they show up, Alan, our world changes instantaneously. That's the coming great deception. It will happen, more than likely after a nuclear event.
Which will cause an explosion. There were already preceding that be an explosion of alien religions that are going to deceive many. So the church's got to stop laughing this off and start addressing it seriously and apologetically, theologically. Your latest video said they can just consume it all and jump in the deep end, get it all. And
you will walk away going, oh, when you get to the cattle mutilation film, which is number 6, it's the darkest film we've ever created. There's no release. There's no happy moment. There's no closure. It's the calling card of darkness is what it is.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned when you were referring to the Great Deception that it would probably take place after a nuclear explosion.
Correct.
What did you mean by that?
You get a nuclear event anywhere on this planet, and what are we reading? Almost daily. Russia says if we lose even an inch of ground, we will nuke Washington and London. Seriously? I mean, are you really going there? Am I hearing right? We're hearing all the saber rattling. Iran's got nukes. The Middle East is imploding, which is prophetic in my opinion. Absolutely prophetic in my opinion. Ukraine is the meat grinder. Where you go into the meat grinder, you're basically dead, which is why they call it a meat grinder. You're just cannon fodder. That's what it is. It's an endless, mindless, senseless war. And we're paying for it. We're all linked up. You get a nuclear device going off anywhere on this planet, that's going to create the greatest climate of fear that mankind has collectively known and experienced together, collectively, at the speed of light. The entire planet is poised, going, what's next? Are we all going to die?
Men's hearts failing them for fear. Yes.
There it is, from what is coming upon the earth. Well, guess what's coming? That's when the mile-wide crafts show up.
Yeah.
And when they show up, they'll say, we created all life on this planet. We genetically manipulated early man. We started the world's religions, started the world's civilizations, and now at this critical juncture, E.T., we're back to usher mankind into a golden age. But they're not E.T., they are the fallen angels.
Interdimensional beings. Now, would they be the interdimensional beings, or would they be reverse engineered government propagandist kind of Project Blue Beam type of stuff, or a little bit of both?
I think it's both. Blue Beam has got some interesting characteristics, but I think when the nuke goes off, we won't be looking at Blue Beam. I got this from Jeff Van Hatten. So Jesus goes up, they watch him. Elijah goes up, they watch him. The two witnesses are killed. They're laying on the streets of Jerusalem. All of a sudden, they go up.
Yep.
The world
Everybody's
watching.
watching.
Okay. So here it is, the rapture of the church. Millions of people go up. Into where? For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with a voice of the archangel, and will ask trumpet. The dead in Christ will rise first, and then we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with those where? In the clouds, to greet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be more with the Lord. So we're going up into the clouds, right? And out of the cloud,
at the same time,
comes that.
Wow.
And there's your great deception. And I got that from Jeff Van Hatten and Mando Gonzalez. But the kicker is my work on Fatima, that's exactly what happened. It had been raining all night, raining in the morning. All of a sudden, it stops raining, the sun comes out. In front of the sun comes this cloud. Out of the cloud comes a dull silver disc. That's what they saw. That's what the eyewitnesses say. I looked up and saw a dull silver disc. So where do you
think these discs are coming from, by the way? Where are these, it's very interesting when you look at scripture, angels traveling by chariot as if they need some sort of vehicle by which to travel. But where are these? I don't think we see them entering our atmosphere. We do see them going into the ocean and things like that. Where are they housed? Where are they coming from? Is it interdimensional, or is it somewhere else on the planet?
It's interdimensional, but I believe a lot of the bases are in the oceans, very, very deep. That's where they hang out. That's conjecture, but we've seen them travel at, 40 knots underwater. You can't do that. You just can't do that. So, I mean, it's a very complex deal. In the book of Ezekiel, Father God goes riding out in the 57 Chevy. I'm being silly here, but Gary Stearman and I have talked about this. He's just sitting there cruising. He's going for a joyride. I mean, that's what he's doing. When Elisha says to the Lord, Lord, open my servant's eyes. And Gehazi goes out, and what did he see? The chariots of fire. In the vernacular, thousands of years ago, there's no verbiage for UFO flying saucer. It doesn't exist.
Right.
So he's looking at this phenomena above the Syrian army. Chariot, that's the vehicle that he knows. I saw a chariot of what? Fire, because that's the other thing that he knows. A chariot of fire. Well, what does that sound like? I mean, there it is. I mean, it's right there screaming at us. And see, Christians, we Christians, because I'm one too, we have a very truncated view of the biblical narrative. Adam and Eve are booted out of Eden. God sends 2 cherubim to guard the east gate. Well, why not the north, south, and west gate? We're not told. But inquisitive minds start there and going like, why just the east gate? There's no answer. But he's like this, right? Cherubim on either side. What's in between the cherubim? A flaming sword which turns every which way. Vroom, 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 vroom. Lightsaber? I know. Oh, MARZULLI, you've gone completely off the wall. Really? What is a flaming sword, if not a lightsaber? What is that? You tell me. Where am I going wrong? A flaming sword? Flaming sword? Lightsaber. And so the deal is we've got this truncated view.
Yeah.
No one's holding this thing, as far as we know. The text doesn't say, and the cherubim were holding the flaming sword. No, this thing's just operating on its own. That is supernatural technology that's in our Bibles.
It's really, it opens your mind up to the spiritual warfare that we're in. And if that's the capability the enemy has, greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you this, and we can press on and we can go in different directions, whatever bunny trails you want to go on. But with all of the extensive research that you've done, what are the top 3 videos that you say, okay, we need to pay attention to these?
Well, but and I know it sounds self-serving, but in the debris field, I mean, that's got to be right up on top in the debris field. We haven't released this one yet, but the second one would be America Stonehenge, the Bell connection. So America Stonehenge is in New Hampshire. All right. And this is a 3-hour conversation. We don't have that much time, but they were doing some excavations in the chamber in ruins. That's what they call it. Something happened to this chamber. Roofs collapsed and busted. So something, we're not even sure what, but I have some theories. And an archaeologist is there, and buried about 18 inches to 2 feet below the surface is a stone. They realize that the stone has writing on it, but they don't know what it says. So it sits in the museum for 11 years until Professor Barry Fell from Harvard University comes and looks at the stone. He goes, I think I can translate that. That looks like Iberian Punic. So Professor Barry Fell goes back. He knows nothing about the Nephilim. He has no Nephilim dog in the hunt. This is what the stone says. To Baal of the Canaanites in dedication. Mm-hmm. When I heard that, I fell out of my chair. I was actually filming. And I look at Kelsey Stone and I go, what did you just say? I can't believe what I'm hearing. That rewrites history. But the modern day archaeologists insist that this is just a fake. And obviously the Canaanites never would have come over here because Columbus is the first person from the New World. Yak, 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 yak. No matter how much evidence you throw at them, it's the same old, dog and pony show. Let's just spin it till the cows come home. Show me where Barry Fell is going wrong. Let's not call him a kook. Let's not call him a pseudo-archaeologist.
Deal with the argument.
A pseudo-archaeologist. Let's sit down and you tell me why this doesn't rewrite history. The onus is on you. Fell did the work. That shouldn't be there. That does rewrite history. That stone was in the museum for 11 years. If it's a hoax, who's benefiting by it? Nobody. How many people know Iberian Punic who lived in the Americas? It's like, give me a break, right? So that rewrites history. And that would be number 4 and 5 of On the Trail of the Nephilim. Those 2 films go together.
And again, we'll put the link in the description for people to get access to these.
I mean, you need to watch it. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
It'll just,
Can they get it digitally as well as DVD? They can get either one.
You can
either one.
Yeah, streaming.lamarzulli.net. That's our streaming site. Instant gratification. You can download and watch for like $5, $6.
Yeah. The link is in the description. Now, earlier you mentioned the Tic Tac video, which people have seen, and Fravor is very convincing, and it seems to be just a trustworthy source. What are some other UFO videos that you say, we need to pay attention to that?
Well, it's the one from the skip one, which is just incredible. We took that off the net, and it's, white sands. That was smuggled out. I
Really?
actually saw a Tic Tac shape. Someone gave that to me probably in 2008. Some guy just walked up and said, "Here, you might be interested in this," and then disappeared in the crowd. I didn't do anything with it because there was no provenance. I don't know where he got. Obviously, it was military, and I was afraid of using it because it was military, so I never did. But it clearly shows, a Tic Tac shaped object, the planes above it, filming the whole thing like this. It's in his gun sight. Really interesting stuff. So that would be one UFO film, the the White Sands one. There's one that we used in the film, in the debris field, in our Roswell film. And what's cool about that, my business partner is Gil Zimmerman. We direct and produce these films. We're like a tag team. We're up to speed. We're directing, co-directing. We both wear the same hat. And, we work together and we edit the films together. I knew about this and I found it, or Gil found it. Doesn't make any difference. We used it in the film. And Gil said, LA, if it's a hoax, it's an expensive hoax. Gil worked 30 years between Disney and DreamWorks. So this guy's a real player. What's he doing with me, first of all? So he goes, there's like 20, 25 people here. You got all period pieces. You've got Jeeps, warehouse, uniforms. I mean, you're looking at big bucks for what? Nobody's profiting off this thing. And the film shows pandemonium, controlled pandemonium, as they're bringing a body in on a stretcher. And it's a gray. It's one of them from the crash, probably at Roswell. That's what I think it is. And people are mulling around. The guy with the camera, people are cutting in front of him. Finally, we slow it down. He gets a shot like this. He's peering through a couple of people. There's the body on the stretcher. We slow the film down so you really get a look at it. It's what they saw. It's what was there. And
wow.
That's in the film. That's in the film.
Well, I got to ask you this as well. When I first went into ministry, I worked in a prayer ministry. I prayed for probably more than 100,000 people one-on-one. And in that time, I started getting these stories of people who were abducted or abused in some way, shape, or form. And at first, I just kind of sloughed it off as, well, these are people mentally unstable individuals. And then people from different states, different countries, different cultures with the same story, the same exact experience. And then it started to say, well, maybe there's something here. As you've done research with this, when we're talking about alien abductions, do you think this is legitimate? Is this a real thing that people are encountering?
100% yes. 100%. Tucker on Fox News, Brett Baer goes, the story was some women who were abducted by, not abducted, some women who were in the presence, close proximity of UFOs find themselves pregnant. Well, we've known about this for decades. We interviewed Dr. David Jacob. Dr. David Jacobs is a researcher who interviewed many, many people who were taken and abducted. Karen Wilkinson, we published her book. Karen was taken when she was 6 years old. She was impregnated by them three times. And they come and they take the baby in the 3rd month of pregnancy. Jesus warns us to be like the days of Noah. We're here. This is this mingling of the seed. So I'll go
genetic
back to
manipulation.
Yeah, that's what it is. Daniel chapter 2, verse 43. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. Who are they? Who are they? It's not human beings, so who are they? And what's maddening, I live in California. There's like millions of people here, Southern California. I've been asked to speak at one church in the last 10 years. And over the Christmas vacation, I said, I'll come and speak for free. And we did. We had one in Claremont. One church had us come. We spoke for free. About 60, 70, 80 people there. We stopped going to the local churches. They're all amillennial. So there is no literal millennium. Well,
Right.
That's going to drive me nuts because Israel doesn't matter. Prophecy doesn't matter. It's just, your best life now. Well, I'm not doing that. So we've never been invited in my own hometown. A prophet, and I don't consider myself a prophet, but a prophet is not without honor in his, except in his own town. And that's exactly true. There is no honor here. I'm looked at like I got 3 heads. I don't care. The Lord brings us, we're going to Arkansas, then we go down to Jupiter, Florida, then we swing back and we hit Colorado Springs. I mean, we're all over the place.
Well, you're
In
always welcome in
Ohio.
Charlotte, North Carolina, by the way.
I'd love to come. Invite me.
Always welcome. Anytime you want to come, we'll bring you out here, because I think the church needs to be prepared, not only to give an answer for the hope that lies within us, but to minister healing and deliverance for those who have been tormented by these types of experiences, and let people know you can be set free. Have you seen the power of the name of Jesus able to overcome these types of things?
Absolutely. Karen Wilkinson is a walking ex-abductee. She was taken from 6 years old. We published her book, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. Vicky Joy, sleep paralysis, dealing with incubus, succubus. Look, the spirit world is real.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most Christians don't even know how to deal with it. They don't even know how to deal with it, for crying out loud. So
No
it's,
question.
the Lord protects us. I know that. Without him, we'd be dead. But, we've had stuff happen that I don't want to go through again. I mean, I just don't, the enemy is, roams like a roaring lion seeking to devour.
Well, we're standing in faith with you, and we thank God for your gift. How can people connect with you if they want to connect with your ministry, with your social media? What's the best way to do that?
LAMarzulli.net, that's the website. LAMarzulli.com, LAMarzulli.net. If you go .com, you got to go www.LAMarzulli.com. We just got that after like 20 years. We just, the guy who bought it is a weasel. We paid him off, and now we've got .com. Thanks a lot.
Well, let's take advantage of it then. He paid for it, and I promise you he paid for it. So let's make sure he invested wisely. LAMarzulli.com. We'll put the links in the description of this video. LA, it's been a true pleasure talking with you.
Alan, we've got to do it again. We've just scratched the surface. There are 30 films, 13 and a half books.
We didn't even get to the giants of Kandahar or anything. We got a lot to talk about with you.